Part 53. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 521. Not yet consummated? Nan 11 looked at her in surprise. Can the Huo family tolerate it? Mrs. Huo doesn't know about this. Lin Jia smiled lightly. Her son hangs out in brothels all day long and hooks up with the maids in the palace. I feel disgusted. Besides, I didn't plan to live with him for a long time, so naturally I don't want to live with him for a long time. Let him touch me. Nan 11 was silent for a moment, then raised her lips and smiled slightly. It's beautifully done. Lin Jia was silent for a moment, lowered his head and took a sip of tea, but his heart was depressed. What's the use of doing it beautifully? She is not Nan 11. She does not have the protection of a powerful husband. Her mother only sees profit and conspiracy. In order to get along with the two brothers of the Ling family, she does not hesitate to let her marry a playboy. No matter how tough her attitude is, she is just a weak woman. How can you fight against so many people in the Huo family on your own? She has only been married for a few months now. Although Mrs. Huo is strong, she does not dare to cause too much trouble in a short period of time. In the future, if Mrs. Lin Jia has nothing to do, the Huo family will never let it go. That's when we'll really be in a dilemma. Lin Jia was actually ready to fight them to the end. At worst, the fish was dead and the net was broken, so what if he risked his life? If you have nothing to worry about in Dezhou, why not come with me to Dongling? Nan 11 suggested. No one will know you there. You can come out of this haze and start a new life. Lin Jia was stunned, then slowly raised his head to look at Nan 11, going to Dongling. Nan 11 nodded. Lin Jia bit her lip lightly. What does the imperial uncle mean to help me get out of the fire pit of the Huo family? Otherwise, why do you think I asked you to come here? Nan 11 smiled lightly. To see your jokes, or to expose your scars? Lin Jia was silent. Also, don't call me grandma uncle again. Nan 11's mouth twitched slightly. Don't you think that as soon as this title comes out, I seem to have aged dozens of years instantly? Lin Jia laughed. Who made my great uncle born late? You can't mess with the seniority, otherwise it will be a crime of disrespect. Just as Nan 11 was about to say something, a maid came in from outside the palace and reported with lowered eyebrows, Princess, the second young lady of the Nan family wants to see you. Nan 11 and Lin Jia were stunned at the same time. The hall was quiet for a moment, then Nan 11 said calmly, herself. Yes. Nan Xiao, Lin Jia frowned. What is she planning? Nan 11 turned to look out the window with a calm expression. Go and tell her that I am busy today and don't have time to see her. Yes. The maid received the order and quickly turned around and left. Lin Jia picked up the teacup and took a sip, feeling a little sad for no reason. It's not that I sympathize with Nan Xiao, I just feel it. Nan 11, who was once the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister, was the object of ridicule and contempt by the wives of the powerful and aristocratic families in the entire Great Zhou dynasty. Almost all of them looked down upon Nan 11, a merchant girl, with a condescending attitude, and their words were sarcastic and full of they were targeted with hostility and even deliberately promoted the Li family and their daughter to suppress Mrs. Nan Xiang and Nan 11, their legitimate daughter. Prime Minister Nan even doted on his concubines and destroyed his wives. He trampled on all the kindness his first wife had shown him. However, as of now, just over a year has passed. In addition to being a regent princess who was feared by everyone, Nan 11 magically became the most noble queen in Dongling. Those who laughed and despised her back then had to grovel in front of her and be careful to please her. Nan Jiao has to use the word beg if she wants to see her. Whether Nan 11 wants to see her depends entirely on her mood. The so-called things are different now, and that's probably true. After regaining consciousness, Lin Jia raised her eyes and looked at Nan 11, do you want to go back to see your father? Nan 11 raised her eyebrows, what do you want him to do? Nan Xiang, Mr. Nan is not having a good life right now, Lin Jia said in a complex tone. Li's mother and daughter even fell from the clouds into the quagmire. They have become a joke among the powerful ladies of the imperial capital. Nan 11 said calmly, whether it's good or not is his own fault, what does it have to do with others? Lin Jia was silent for a moment. Yes, whether you are good or not is your own fault. What does it have to do with others? Nan Xingzi knew that if he had cherished his first wife's unbreakable affection for many years and if he had been more fatherly to Nan 11, his legitimate daughter, then now he could easily surpass all the nobles in the imperial capital just by relying on his identity as the regent's father-in-law. Above the aristocratic family. Unfortunately, there is no if. If you do too many unjust things, you will always get some retribution. Okay, let's not talk about them. Nan 11 was not interested in talking about the Nan family's affairs. It seemed that it had nothing to do with her. You stay at the regent's mansion for dinner today. After dinner, you write your letter of divorce. I ask someone to accompany you back to Huo's house with the regent's handwriting to settle the matter of divorce. You will live in the regent's palace from tomorrow on and don't go out again. Lin Jia was really surprised for a while when he heard this. Does she want to say it's that simple? The matter of peace and separation was of great importance. Not to mention the Huo family, her mother's side was bound to cause trouble. However, Lin Jia quickly thought of the regent's intimidation in the imperial capital. Not to mention her mother, even the queen mother is no match for him. Is there anything that can't be done in the name of the regent? Thinking of this, Lin Jia's heart suddenly relaxed, and she was surprised and happy for a moment. She stood up involuntarily. Thank you, uncle and grandma. I really shouldn't thank you enough. Thank you for what? Nan 11 chuckled, you can't pledge yourself to me. Lin Jia was silent for a moment, and then she murmured in a low voice, I do think that I'm afraid that the emperor's uncle will chop me with a knife. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere suddenly became relaxed. Nan 11 chuckled, it's true that Rongyu is jealous, but she is not jealous of everyone. Lin Jia didn't think so. In her opinion, it's better to be a little obedient in front of the jealous regent. If she is angry, she will be killed by the regent with just one finger. Lin Jia chatted with Nan 11 in the palace for half a day. Because the divorce issue was resolved, her tone of voice was much lighter, with an obvious smile on her face. When she talked about the new emperor ascending the throne, she was silent for a moment, with a sigh in her tone. It's true that things are unpredictable. A year ago, probably no one would have expected that the world of the Great Zhou would be ruled by Prince Yun. Rong Chuiyun, who ascended the throne, became an abandoned emperor. The other princes who wanted to ascend the throne plotted hard but got nothing. Instead, Prince Yun, who has always been thin and low-key, caught this pie that fell from the sky. How can people not say that fate is really wonderful? Rongyu will definitely choose the most suitable person to be the emperor to take charge of the country for the sake of the Great Zhou. Nan 11 said, the emperor is benevolent and cares about the people, so that the people can live better. The country is the ladder for ambitious people to pursue power, but if the person who climbs the ladder is immoral, the innocent people will suffer. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 522. Lin Jia is a daughter of a boudoir. Even though she is a royal princess, what a girl like her sees mostly is the prosperity, the struggle for power among the princes under the prosperity, the intrigues of the concubines in the harem, and at most the officialdom. The intrigues can be regarded as a broad vision. As for the people in the world, she didn't think that much. So when she learned that King Yun was about to ascend the throne as emperor, she only thought about King Yun's luck and the embarrassing situation of the other princes who tried their best but couldn't get anything. However, when she heard what Nan 11 said, she suddenly realized that there was a gap between women. They were both born in a boudoir, some saw rich clothes, some saw delicacies, and some looked at powerful people. There are people who care about the world in their hearts. Maybe it wasn't until this moment that she truly understood why Rong Yu loved Nan 11 so wholeheartedly. Not because of pure kindness or kindness, nor because of how beautiful and intelligent she is. It's just because she has qualities that other women don't have. Nan 11, the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's house, who had been ridiculed by many people, was really not comparable to any other pampered noblewoman. In the evening, Rong Yu came back from the palace. At Nan 11's request, he wrote a handwritten letter to Linjia and arranged for the security commander of the regent's palace to personally escort Linjia back to handle the divorce. Linjia took the handwritten letter and thanked his great-uncle and great-aunt again and again. He only called Rong Yu and Nan 11 an octogenarian old man and old lady, and then he went back home with great excitement and went to work in a grand manner. Her divorce formalities were over. Rong Yu and Nan 11 stayed at the house for dinner. As night fell, Rong Yu asked Nan 11 if she wanted to go out for a walk. "I did a lot of shopping on the way here," Nan 11 said. "After seeing all the scenery and appreciating various ethnic customs, I won't go out for the next 2 days. I will stay in the palace to cultivate myself." This sentence seemed to be in line with Rong Yu's thoughts. He pulled Nan 11's face and pecked her. "Then we will stay in the palace to cultivate our moral character and not let anyone disturb her." At that moment, Nan 11 almost thought that the purpose of Rong Yu's return to Zhou dynasty was to enjoy the quiet time of just two people with her. There were not so many government affairs, there were no ministers from time to time to advise on choosing a husband, and there were no children to need. She hugged her, and the two of them stayed quietly in the palace, eating, sleeping, well, playing in the water together, spending the spring night together. With this thought flashing through her mind, Nan 11 couldn't help but lift her chin and quietly said, "Rong Yu." "Huh?" Rong Yu nibbled her earlobe. "What are your orders from 11er? When do you plan to return to Tangling?" Rong Yu moved for a moment, then said calmly, "It's easy to get tired from running back and forth. 11er has a delicate body, so I must give you enough rest time." "So what?" Nan 11 frowned and smiled slightly. "In the words of King Yun, the spring season next year is the best time to travel, right?" "The one who knows me is 11er." Rong Yu chuckled. "If possible, it's actually not a bad idea to go back to Dongling at this time next year, but I'm afraid that the delay will be too long and 11er won't worry about it, so it's just right to go back in spring. Based on this, we have 4 full months to stay in Dazhuo." Nan 11 couldn't help but frown. "Even if the government affairs have been properly arranged, you should think about how her still young age, the separation of Xian Yuanqi and Chu Hongii as husband and wife, and what?" Nan 11 was silent for a moment. "And some guy in Dongling imperial capital may do some willful things while you are away." Hearing the strange tone in her tone, Rong Yu raised his head and said, 11er is referring to. Nan 11 looked at him quietly for a while. "Are you pretending to be stupid on purpose, or are you really stupid?" Rong Yu is really stupid. During this period of time, he didn't think about Xiejin at all. In other words, apart from Nan 11 and the government affairs, it was difficult for him to focus on other things. Anyway, he had enough eyes and ears to keep track of the changes in various places. They will report it as soon as possible. This has directly led to his reduced sensitivity in some seemingly insignificant matters in recent days, ignoring the signs of some things. But Nan 11 noticed. And Rong Yu is the person who knows Nan 11 best, so after pondering for a moment, he said, 11er is talking about Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao. Nan 11's voice was calm. "I have a premonition that some things have developed in an uncontrollable direction." Uncontrollable direction? Nan 11 was right, some things were indeed out of control. Rong Yu and Nan 11 left Dongling, and Xiejin was assassinated just outside the door of his mansion. It was a dark and windy murderous night for a month. Well, anyway, the wound was not deep, it was just a cut on the arm by the sword, but the serious thing was that the sword was poisonous. Xie, who was assassinated, immediately fell into a coma after being poisoned, like a monster. His handsome face glowed with black and blue, and he looked shocking and extremely dangerous. Xie Xiaofu was furious and anxious and called the imperial doctor. Unexpectedly, the imperial doctor was helpless and could only apologize regretfully. Chief Xie thought of Chu Nanyi, who was skilled in medicine in the Chu family, and quickly sent someone to invite him over. After Chu Nanyi got the news, he went into Xie's house and stayed in Xiejin's Jinyuan for 2 full days before taking Xiejin's place. The poison was cleaned up, and then a few more decoctions were prescribed for oral administration, and the servants of the Xie family were ordered to boil the medicine according to the dosage. Now that they were out of danger, Mr. Xie and Mrs. Xie finally breathed a sigh of relief. But Xiejin never really woke up, always in a state of half sleep and half wakefulness, mumbling in his sleep. His words were unclear, and no one knew what he was saying. The news that the son of the Xie family was assassinated quickly spread throughout the imperial city. Xian Yuanyao in the military camp naturally heard about it as well. At first, he thought it was fake news and sneered subconsciously. Was the Xie family's evildoer assassinated? Who was so bold that he dared to attack Xiejin because he thought his life was too long? However, as the news came one by one, Xian Yuanyao found out that his assassination was a small matter, but poisoning was a big matter. Even the imperial physician could not cure the poison. It was Chu Nanyi who found a way to cure Xiejin's poison. He couldn't help but feel a little shocked. Xiejin was actually assassinated, and it seemed that his life was at stake. What deep hatred did the assassin have with him that he spit poison on the sword and had to kill him? Xian Yuanyao kept convincing himself that this matter had nothing to do with him. Xiejin was poisoned, and the Xie family would take care of him. It was useless for him to worry. His mission was to train the soldiers. However, the more he thought about it, the more worried he became about whether the evildoer would be in danger of death. What if Chu Nanyi's medical skills were not good enough and he failed to clear the remaining poison in his body, causing him to suddenly die of the poison? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 523. I can't help but have random thoughts in my heart, and it's always easy to get distracted when doing things. In the end, Xian Yuanyao couldn't resist the worries in his heart. He left the military camp on the third night after Xiejin was assassinated and entered the city into Xie's mansion. The housekeeper led him to Jinyuan. Xian Yuanyao raised his eyes and saw Mrs. Xie with red eyes. His heart sank suddenly. Madam. Yao Yao. Mrs. Xie's eyes brightened when she saw him coming. She then wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and choked with sobs. Why are you here? Let me see Xiejin. How is he? Xian Yuanyao turned to look in the direction of the inner room. Has the assassin been caught? Who is so audacious, under the bright sky, that he dares to attack even the legitimate son of the Xie family? Mrs. Xie shook her head slowly, still investigating. Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment, wanting to comfort her with a few words, but he swallowed the words silently. His son's life was at stake, and it was normal for a mother to be worried, and words of comfort would not do much. He turned around and walked into the inner room. When he saw Xiejin lying on the bed with a pale and haggard face, he couldn't help but frown. The young master who used to be so bright and handsome in the past has become so haggard in just 2 or 3 days. Jinner woke up once at noon. Mrs. Xie walked in and looked at her son lying on the bed with distressed eyes, but the waking time was very short, and she couldn't eat for the time being. She only drank 2 sips of water. Xian Yuanyao frowned. Has the remaining poison in the body been cleared? I don't know. Mrs. Xie shook her head. Mr. Chu just said to check the situation again. He will come over again tonight. If Jinner can wake up at night, it may be nothing serious. If symptoms of fever and vomiting blood occur, it may still be possible. You have to think of other ways. Thinking of other ways? Xian Yuanyao felt weird and wanted to know what kind of poison he was poisoned with. Why couldn't even Chu Nanyi determine the symptoms? It stands to reason that Chu Nanyi's medical skills should be good, and he should also have many excellent detoxification pills in his hand. Doesn't he know whether Xiejin's body has been completely cleared of the remaining poison? However, Xian Yuanyao then thought about it. There are so many strange poisons in this world that even doctors cannot see them all. Moreover, listening to MRSC's words, Xiejin should not be in danger of his life. Your Majesty, can you stay here and take care of my young master? The young man walked out of the inner room with water and asked uneasily, the young master has been talking nonsense, and my wife has been guarding the young master for 2 days and 2 nights without a wink. Xian Yuanyao turned to look at MRSC. When she came in, she only noticed her red eyes and ignored her pale and tired face. Now she realized that MRSC also had a haggard and thin face, with cyan shadows under her eyes. Madam, please go and rest first, he said warmly, I will take care of you here. If anything happens, I will let you know. MRSC shook her head, you still have things to do in the military camp, so how can you waste your time here? It doesn't matter. I've already handed over the affairs. There won't be any problems for this one night. MRSC hesitated for a moment, would it be too troublesome for you? It's not troublesome, Xian Yuanyao comforted, Xiejin and I are good brothers, and we should take care of him. Madam, you don't need to take it to heart. Good brother? MRSC's expression paused, and then she turned her head and glanced at her son lying on the bed nonchalantly, frowning slightly, her expression still unable to conceal her worry. However, Xian Yuanyao finally allowed her to leave temporarily and go back to take a rest after repeated persuasion. Xian Yuanyao sat in front of the bed, silently looking at Xiejin, who fell into a coma, and said to himself, you, a monster, have actually fallen into such a situation. If you let those who have been offended by you see it, I'm not sure how happy it will be. Xiejin naturally didn't respond. After being tortured by the toxin for 2 days, he looked as if he was exhausted. Not only was his face completely white, but his lips were also a bit blue and white and dry. The more Xian Yuanyao looked at it, the more dazzling it became. How could he have tortured himself into this kind of virtue? Aren't you very powerful? He frowned, you are not afraid of anything, no one in the imperial city dares to mess with you, are you being slapped in the face now? The assassins dared to attack directly in front of your house, and they didn't take you seriously at all. Where is it? The maids in the room were all standing outside, listening to Xian Yuanyao's words of worry or ridicule. They all stood with lowered eyebrows and eyes, as if they were invisible people. Xian Yuanyao's eyes fell on Xiejin's dry lips. The more he looked at them, the more unpleasant they became. He turned around and ordered, bring me a glass of water. After finishing speaking, he added, get another spoon. A maid responded and quickly poured a glass of warm water and brought it over. Xian Yuanyao scooped some water with a spoon and brought it to Xiejin's lips to feed him, but how could Xiejin, who was in a coma, drink water? The clear water flowed down the corners of his lips, only a small half went into his mouth, and the rest flowed out. Xian Yuanyao frowned, you don't know how to drink water. Xiejin still didn't respond. Xian Yuanyao didn't know what he thought of, so he put the water glass aside and raised his hand to put on Xiejin's wrist. Well, the pulse is steady and strong, and there doesn't seem to be much sign of weakness. Xian Yuanyao raised his head and looked at Xiejin's closed eyes, stretched out his hand to open his eyelids and took a look. In fact, he didn't know what he was looking at. Anyway, the doctor always looked, heard, and asked in this way during the diagnosis. After watching for a while, unable to figure out the reason, Xian Yuanyao reached under Xie Jin's neck and pinched his neck. A Jin. Xie Jin fell asleep unconsciously. Xian Yuanyao's mind moved slightly, and his strong fingers somehow pinched Xie Jin's fragile neck. He exerted a slight force. A Jin, if I exert a little force now, your life will fall into my hands. After saying this, he suddenly realized that Xie was not prepared for him at all. She just handed over her poisoned and comatose son to him, and then left? If he had ulterior motives and wanted to harm Xie Jin, he could easily end his life now. But soon, Xian Yuanyao curled his lips. Well, even if he really has ulterior motives, he can't be stupid enough to take action in other people's houses, otherwise Xie Jin's life will be sealed, and his own life may not last long. Why did you capsize in the gutter? Xian Yuanyao let go of his neck, brought the water cup over and placed it on the counter. He opened Xie Jin's mouth with one hand and fed him water with a spoon in the other hand. The Lord has left the important affairs of the government to you, so it would be better for you to just fall asleep and be unconscious. When the Lord comes back, you will definitely be punished for your inability to do things well. He fed him water while talking. He was originally a military commander and the Prince of Huainan. He had not served many people since he was a child. Even in the days when he was trained by Rong Yu's side, he only stayed close to listen to orders and was often called upon. He was ordered to grind, sweep the floor, and serve tea and water, but it was really his first time to serve an unconscious patient like this and he was inexperienced. After the glass of water was finished, Xie Jin's front and pillow were wet with water. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 524. Night has fallen outside. Xian Yuanyao is not a doctor, and he is not very good at taking care of people, especially taking care of a comatose person. He doesn't even know what he should do, so the more he thinks about it, the more he feels that Xie should not have been allowed to leave just now. Even if you have to leave, at least tell him what to do. Xian Yuanyao sat for a moment like a fool. Seeing that Xie Jin showed no signs of waking up, he couldn't help but feel worried. Finally, he turned around and ordered, "Hu, go to Chu's house and ask Chu Nanyi to come over." The young man who had just been waiting for Xie Jin in the inner room came over, lowered his head, and said nervously, "Young man, go right now. Please take good care of my young master, your highness. Don't leave, in case the young master wakes up and can't be found." People, villains, villains. Xian Yuanyao glanced at him. "Did I tell you to leave?" When the young man heard this, his expression relaxed, he quickly saluted Xian Yuanyao, then turned around and walked out in a hurry. "Yao Yao." Xian Yuanyao was startled and suddenly turned his head to look at Xie Jin. Mr. Xie was still unconscious, his lips moved slightly, and he was murmuring confusedly, "Yao Yao." Xian Yuanyao frowned and stared at him expressionlessly. "I want." Xie Jin frowned, as if he couldn't bear the pain. "I want medicine." Xian Yuanyao's expression became strange, his face was uncertain, and he was not sure what he was talking about. "Want medicine? Yao Yao. What do you want?" This fox was restless even when he was unconscious, which made people want to beat him severely. "Yao Yao." Xie Jin opened his eyes and saw the young man sitting in front of the bed. He thought he had seen the wrong person. He closed his eyes subconsciously and opened them again. "Is it really you?" Xian Yuanyao stood up suddenly. "Are you awake?" Xie Jin blinked slowly and said in a hoarse voice, What's wrong with me?" "Are you embarrassed to ask?" Xian Yuanyao frowned and looked at him as if he was looking at some monster. "Why did you wake up suddenly?" "What are Yao Yao talking about?" Xie Jin frowned and tried to sit up. "How long have I been asleep?" "Don't move." Xian Yuanyao raised his hand to stop his movement. "The body is still weak, why are you moving?" Xie Jin glanced at him and slowly lay down again. I seem to have had a dream just now." Xian Yuanyao said, "What dream?" I dreamed that Yao Yao fed me water. Xian Yuan Yao frowned and stared at Xie Jin's pale and tired face. If his face was not really pale, he would not help but wonder whether Xie Jin was really poisoned and comatose or was pretending to sleep. It's not a dream, he said calmly, I was indeed feeding you water just now. Xie Jin's eyes lit up, seriously. Xian Yuan Yao sneered, the ninth master of the Xie family should be surrounded by maids and servants to take care of daily life, right? It's just a feed of water, do you need to be so excited? That's different. Xie Jin started to pant after saying a few words. He closed his eyes for a moment and then emphasized again, it's different. Yao Yao is different from them. Xian Yuan Yao's eyebrows skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but want to leave. Yao Yao, you are different from them. Xie Jin looked at him seriously. Although his voice was a little hoarse, it went straight into people's hearts. I am serious. Xian Yuan Yao's face was stiff and he looked at him emotionlessly. Is your current physical condition suitable for saying such boring words? Ahem, it's because of the condition of my body that I have to say it. Xie Jin took a deep breath. You're right, people like me can capsize in the gutter. Maybe I will die one day. When the time comes, I won't be able to say what's in my heart, will I have to take it to the underworld? What nonsense are you talking about? Why were you brought to the underworld? Xian Yuan Yao frowned and glared at him displeased. A monster like you must have brought harm to the world for thousands of years. How could he die so easily? After he finished speaking, he suddenly reacted, did you eavesdrop on me just now? He said that when he capsized in the gutter, the man was in a coma and couldn't even feed him water. How could he possibly hear him? How could it be eavesdropping? Yao Yao, don't accuse me wrongly. Xie Jin propped up his body on his elbows and tried to sit up with difficulty. Xian Yuan Yao couldn't see it, so he stretched out his hand to fish it out, helped him up and sat on the head of the bed. I can't move my body or speak, but I can vaguely hear other people's voices. Xie Jin explained, my mother has been crying in my room for the past 2 days. The crying makes me uncomfortable. I want to comfort her but I can't. I couldn't keep my eyes open, as if someone had locked my eyelids together with something. I thought I was going to die. That's enough. Xian Yuan Yao felt it was unlucky to hear his sentence on the left saying that he was dying and the one on the right saying that he was dead. I didn't say anything to you, so there is no need to explain. Xie Jin leaned on the bed and looked at him. Did Yao Yao just want to kill me? Xian Yuan Yao's face changed slightly. But I know Yao Yao is reluctant to let go. Xie Jin raised his lips, and his pale face became more radiant with a smile. There are too many people in the world who want to kill me, but Yao Yao is definitely not among them. Xian Yuan Yao's mood at this time was very subtle. You were clearly angry at his first sentence and about to lose your temper, but the second half of his sentence immediately made you feel angry and suffocated in your chest, making you feel uncomfortable all over. But Xie Jin's face looked too weak. Seeing that he was an injured person, Xian Yuan Yao was willing to be tolerant and not care about him. Who is the assassin who assassinated you? Xian Yuan Yao said indifferently, do you have any idea? Xie Jin smiled indifferently, didn't I just say that? There are many people in this world who want me dead. I can't tell who sent the assassin this time for a while. I'll slowly investigate when I feel better. Since you know you have so many enemies, why don't you be more careful? Xian Yuan Yao's eyes were mocking, wasn't it very powerful before? Xie Jin was silent for a moment, and suddenly laughed softly, Yao Yao is worried about me, just say it directly. Now you are still sarcastic, which inevitably seems to be rubbing salt into the wound. Xian Yuan Yao was angry, do you think I am worried about you? I am obviously adding insult to injury. Has Yao Yao never taken care of anyone? Xie Jin sighed, with a helpless tone, the injured person just woke up, and you just kept talking to me, and didn't ask me if I was hungry, thirsty, or if I needed to go to the bathroom. Xian Yuanyao's face changed, and his tone was slightly annoyed. Shut up. Xiejin, shut up. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Xian Yuanyao asked him. Do you want to drink some water first or go to the bathroom first? I'll call someone in to serve you. I don't want anyone to serve me, Xiejin said. I'm shy. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 525. Shy. Xian Yuanyao sneered coldly as if he had heard a joke. When did the ninth master of the Xie family become a lady from a noble family? Yao Yao Xiejin's eyes fell on his face, and his weak voice sounded quite pitiful. I am seriously injured now, can't you feel sorry for me? Xian Yuanyao was silent. I have no strength in my body, Xiejin's voice was weak. If you are angry that I didn't protect myself, when my injury is healed and the poison is cleared, I will choose a day for you to beat me up, okay? Xian Yuanyao frowned. Why did this sound so awkward? What do you mean if you are angry that I didn't protect myself? As if he felt sorry for him. And let him beat him up. Does he look like he wants to beat him up? Why doesn't Yao Yao speak? Xian Yuanyao came back to his senses, and said in a light tone, you probably misunderstood. Huh. I'm not angry with you, he said in a light tone. You were assassinated because you are not popular and have offended too many people. It has nothing to do with me. Why should I be angry? Xiejin pursed his lips, and his pale face looked particularly depressed. Yao Yao's words make people feel uncomfortable. Xian Yuanyao frowned and looked at him expressionlessly. It's really a ghost. How come this monster is as listless as a woman when he is weak? With his beautiful but pale face, he looks really fragile. Fragile? Xian Yuanyao sneered. If this sentence was really said, it would probably scare most of the powerful young men in Dongling to death. Who wouldn't tremble all over when mentioning the ninth master of the Xie family who is like the king of hell? He is fragile? Forget it. Xian Yuanyao sighed resignedly. Why is he thinking so much now? This evildoer is indeed a weak and vulnerable patient. Even if he is really a Yama, he is in a very bad state after being tortured by the assassination and poisoning. Xian Yuanyao did not think about it anymore. He quickly took him to the toilet, and then came back to wash and change clothes. Xiejin was so weak that he had to lean on him to barely support his body, and most of his weight was pressed on Xian Yuanyao. Fortunately, Xian Yuanyao was a military general and did not think he was heavy. He easily half-dragged and half-supported the disabled patient to do what he should do, and then ordered the maid to prepare dinner. Light Xian Yuanyao reminded, your son can't eat too greasy or too stimulating food. The maid did as she was told. However, Xiejin was so weak that he couldn't even take care of himself when eating, so after the maid brought the rice porridge cooked in the kitchen, Xiejin leaned quietly on the head of the bed, looking at Xian Yuanyao eagerly. Yao Yao, feed me. Xian Yuanyao wanted to pick up the bowl of porridge and put it on Xiejin's head. After a moment of silence, he said calmly, you leave these maids in the courtyard unused, are you planning to worship them as bodhisattvas? The maids' expressions changed, and they all knelt down. Xian Yuanyao didn't expect them to react so strongly, and couldn't help frowning. Yao Yao's words scared them. Xiejin sighed, I don't like maids to serve me closely. They stay here just to do some cleaning and tea. Yao Yao, don't get me wrong. He waved his hand and signaled the maids to leave. Xian Yuanyao's brows became tighter and tighter, and he stared at the maids in silence as they left one after another. After a long time, he slowly turned his head and looked at Xiejin. Don't let me misunderstand anything. Nothing. Xiejin shook his head. I'm hungry, Yao Yao. Don't call me that anymore, Xian Yuanyao said in a cold tone. Are you cheesy? Xiejin raised his eyes and looked at him, and in a moment, he changed his words, Brother Yao. Xian Yuanyao's expression froze. The air seemed to be still. Xian Yuanyao gritted his teeth, his face gradually turned pale. staring at Xiejin as if he was looking at a psychopath, the flames of anger jumping in his pupils, with a murderous aura as if he wanted to cut Xiejin into pieces. However, not long after, I don't know what he suddenly thought of, Xian Yuanyao slowly suppressed his anger, the flames in his eyes faded a little bit, and he smiled and said, "Brother Jin, you call me so beautifully, call me again." "Brother Yao." "Again." "Brother Yao." Xian Yuanyao couldn't help but grind his teeth, "Call me twice more." "Brother Yao, Brother Yao, Brother Yao." "That's enough." Xian Yuanyao took a deep breath and said steadily, "Call me like this in the future, in front of your parents and the master, in front of Her Majesty the Queen, in front of the powerful princes of the imperial capital and the civil and military ministers of the court, you can call me like this. As long as you are not afraid of losing your peach blossom-like face, just call me." Xiejin's smile flashed in his eyes, but his face was full of sincerity. "Since Brother Yao likes it, I will call you that from now on." "Xian Yuan Yao." "Brother Yao," Xiejin said softly, "I'm hungry, feed me porridge." Xian Yuan Yao clenched his hands. At this moment, he realized that his self-control was not so good. Xiejin was right. He really wanted to beat him up. He wanted to beat him up so badly that he couldn't take care of himself from now on and couldn't even speak. However, at this time, he could only restrain himself, restrain the urge to attack him, force himself to drag a chair over and sit down, pick up the bowl and start feeding the injured. It's hard to serve people when they are unconscious, but it's obviously much easier when they are awake. Xian Yuanyao fed him quietly, his movements were not rude, but they were definitely not gentle. Xiejin ate very cooperatively. While eating the porridge, the pair of affectionate phoenix eyes always locked on the young man's face, with a burning gaze, never leaving for a moment, and the light in the eyes did not look like the burning heat that a weak and injured person should have. No matter how slow Xian Yuanyao was, he could not ignore his eyes. He gritted his teeth and fed him a bowl of porridge, put down the bowl and said, "Since you are not seriously injured, I will leave first, you yourself dash." "Brother Yao." Xiejin's face changed slightly, "You want to leave me alone?" Xian Yuanyao paused, looking at him with a bit of strangeness. "Don't say you are afraid of being alone." Xiejin nodded, "I am indeed afraid of being alone." Xian Yuanyao. He really hoped that God could hear his call at this moment and send down a thunder to kill this evildoer. "If you leave like this, what if the assassin comes again at night?" Xiejin said weakly, "With my current physical strength, it is probably not enough for the assassin to hit with one finger. The assassin's fingers are really powerful." Xian Yuanyao frowned, thinking that even if Xiejin was really useless now, with the status of Prime Minister Xie, the Xie family would never allow assassins to come and go freely. Moreover, Xiejin had just been assassinated, how could the mansion not strengthen its defense? Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment. "Chu Nanyi will come over in a while, you don't have to worry about assassins breaking in." Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 526. Chu Nanyi. Xiejin narrowed his eyes, a cunning luster flashed across his eyes, but his face was pale and lonely. "It's so late, I'm afraid he won't come." "How is that possible?" Xian Yuanyao frowned, "You are the injured patient, and he is the doctor. When the injured patient needs a doctor, he should be obliged to do so. Chu Nanyi is not a doctor, he just happens to be proficient in some medical skills." Xiejin said, "If it weren't for the Lord's sake, he would not necessarily treat me. Xian Yuanyao was surprised, a concubine of the Chu family is actually so famous. Chu Nanyi, the concubine of the Chu family, no matter how superb his medical skills are, his status in Dongling is absolutely impossible to compete with that of the legitimate son of the Xie family, not to mention. Besides, Chu Nanyi seems to be easy to get along with. Xian Yuanyao thought about it secretly for a moment, but what he was thinking about was not Chu Nanyi, but because of the general's intuition and judgment and analysis ability, he always felt that there was something fishy about Xiejin's assassination. Attack the legitimate son of the Xie family at the gate of the Xie family, and still escape intact? Is it possible that this assassin has the ability to fly into the sky and escape from the earth? Xiejin Xian Yuanyao sat on the chair and looked at Xiejin thoughtfully. Can't you guess who the person who assassinated you is? Xiejin pretended to think about it. He was dressed in black and had a strong build. His face was covered and his appearance could not be seen clearly, but he didn't look like an ordinary martial arts practitioner, but rather like a martial artist. A charlatan? Xian Yuanyao pondered, sifting through possible candidates in his mind. After much deliberation, he had no clue. Even if you are a charlatan, there should be someone behind the scenes, or it is very possible that someone is paying for your life. You really can't think of anyone you've offended recently? Xiejin laughed at himself. I have offended so many people that I can't even count them. Who knows who is brave enough to dare to attack me in front of my house? It's really embarrassing for me. It's a bit embarrassing indeed. But compared to being embarrassed, Xian Yuanyao felt that not catching the assassin was the biggest problem. It stands to reason that there should be a lot of guards inside and outside Xie Shaofu. When his ninth son was assassinated, those masters should show up immediately to protect him and capture the assassin. How could he let the assassin escape? Brother Yao, don't bother, Xiejin said quietly, just leave the assassin matter to my father to investigate. I'm afraid I don't have the energy to deal with it for the time being. Xian Yuanyao frowned. Ever since Xiejin opened his eyes, his brows had not relaxed tonight. Brother Yao is still called addicted? Xian Yuanyao really couldn't understand why he was so thick-skinned. Such a disgusting name came out of a grown man's mouth, and he didn't feel ashamed to blush. Yao Yao. Xiejin leaned on the head of the bed, his voice suddenly lowered and hesitantly serious. Xian Yuanyao's heart skipped a beat and she looked at him silently. What I said to you before was all serious. Cough. Cough, cough, cough. Xiejin said. His throat suddenly felt itchy and he couldn't help but start coughing. I was serious about it, Yao Yao, you. Xian Yuanyao gritted his teeth, stood up, patted his back, and said coldly, the patient looks like a patient, can you be calm? I'm afraid if I don't say it, I'll never have a chance to say it again. Xiejin coughed and his face turned red. His pale face became a little more shiny due to the blush, and there was even a little moisture in the corners of his eyes. It really made people lose their temper. Yao Yao, I really, really. Shut up. Xian Yuanyao frowned and shouted coldly. He raised his hand to pick up the water glass that the maid put aside and brought it to his lips. Drink water. Xiejin coughed violently for a while, finally stopped coughing, and then took a drink of water from his hand. You were injured and poisoned, why are you still coughing? Xian Yuanyao looked at him with a strange look in his eyes. You are probably also infected with the cold, right? Xiejin stretched out his hand to touch his heart, frowning slightly, as if he was extremely uncomfortable. Yao Yao, don't worry, I'm fine. Xian Yuanyao remained silent. Although Chu Nanyi said that my poison looks strange, even if there is a way to detoxify it, the toxin is too harmful to the body and may cause disease in the future. Xiejin said, suddenly stopping talking, but it's nothing, it's a serious problem. You should be fine after drinking a few bitter medicines. However, after recovery, your body will be weaker than before. You must not catch a cold. You must keep warm. You must not be angry or sad. Your mood swings must not be too great. You need to avoid dryness and anger. What kind of poison is so powerful that it turned you into a sick girl? Xian Yuanyao cut off his words, his eyebrows tightening. Xiejin, actually I think Her Majesty the Queen's harem is quite suitable for you. Xiejin raised his eyes, what do you mean? Do you want the Lord to kill me? A person like you, who is full of tricks, is particularly suitable for intrigues. Xian Yuanyao said lightly, I think the Lord can fight with you. Although the Lord is better than you in terms of force, status, and power, but in the conspiracy at this point, I'm not necessarily your opponent. Xiejin was silent. Yao Yao is complimenting me. It's not a compliment, I'm telling the truth. Xian Yuanyao said, a fox like you was born for the intrigues in the harem. Xiejin didn't say anything, he closed his eyes and didn't know what he was thinking. Actually, it's not necessary, Xian Yuanyao said calmly, even if it's just out of friendship or brotherhood. If you were assassinated, injured, and poisoned, I would come over and take a look, but... Xiejin's tone was calm, but what? But I can't respond to your feelings. Xian Yuanyao's voice was calm and rational. You used this method to lead me here, which made me feel distressed, but it was a waste of effort. Xiejin slowly raised his eyes to look at him. Do you think that I led the assassination myself and deliberately deceived you in order to lead you here? Xian Yuanyao said, isn't it? Since you think so, then even if I say it's not, you probably won't believe it. Xiejin closed his eyes, but I still have to say that I'm not stupid enough to use my body as bait to plot against you. Hearing this, Xian Yuanyao's eyes turned suspicious. He looked at Xiejin inquiringly, trying to find some clues from his weak and pale face, but he only saw loneliness, as if he really wronged him. He just felt that there were too many doubts about the assassination, and Xiejin's attitude towards the assassin was too calm, which was inconsistent with his previous ruthless style. But he had no evidence to say that he deliberately led the assassination. If he really wronged him, it would be a bit hurtful. Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment, and his attitude softened. If you tell me the truth, I am willing to believe it. I tell the truth, Xiejin said. The assassin thing is true, and the fact that I like you is also true. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 527. Xian Yuanyao took a step back and stared at Xiejin's serious eyes, feeling slightly panicked. Don't open it again. I'm not joking, nor am I talking nonsense to you. Xiejin's tone was very calm, but he sounded more serious than ever before. Before you, I never thought that I would be tempted by a man, but feelings are so, I really can't control what I grow. I can only face my truest thoughts and face them bravely. Xian Yuanyao pursed his lips, feeling increasingly flustered and nervous. I never thought you would have such an idea that is unacceptable to the world. Intolerable to the world. Xiejin raised his eyes with a heavy gaze. Is that what you think? Xian Yuanyao was speechless for a moment. He wanted to say that this kind of emotion was indeed unacceptable in the world, but when faced with Xiejin's pale and somewhat serious expression, he couldn't say it out loud. He always felt that it would hurt him, but the fact was, it seems quite difficult not to get hurt by such feelings. There was a brief silence in the room. Xian Yuanyao struggled for a long time, constantly thinking about how to reject him without hurting his self-esteem. But after thinking about it, he had never encountered such a situation. He had little experience and had no idea how to deal with it. Yao Yao can consider it, Xiejin said calmly. I won't force you, but no matter whether this kind of feeling is tolerated in the world, I think you should know it. After all, I don't like to wrong my temper. This matter of yours is my own business. As for what you will decide after knowing it, that is also your business. I will not force it. Don't force it. Xian Yuanyao bit his lower lip lightly, wanting to say that his words had already made him feel confused. Even if he didn't force it, he probably wouldn't be able to get along as calm friends as before. I have heard that the ninth master of the Xia family is a romantic person and has countless concubines in the backyard. The one who can make the ninth master fall in love should be the most beautiful person in the country. Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment, seeming puzzled. Why would you have such a desire for me? Idea. After a pause, perhaps worried that Xie Jin was talking nonsense again, he quickly added, please answer seriously. I have countless concubines, but I have never been attracted to any woman. Xie Jin smiled lightly, so there is probably no reason for feelings. Xian Yuanyao said nothing, not knowing what he was thinking. Yao Yao is one of the most open-minded and bright-tempered men I have ever met. Xie Jin chuckled and said, the Xie family has a large population, which is not much better than the emperor's 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. I have been in the growing up in an environment of intrigue. In Yao Yao's words, he was born with a fox-like temperament, cunning and cruel. I just said it casually. Xian Yuanyao was a little embarrassed. Don't take it to heart. Xie Jin smiled lightly and said non-committally, except for the concubine of the Xie family and those clan members, the princes of the powerful and aristocratic families in the imperial capital are not fuel-efficient lamps. Who has not lived with a mask since childhood? Although their abilities are different, their temperaments are not much different. Everyone has their own agenda, they talk about people and talk about ghosts. Xian Yuanyao thought of the Su family master and the men from the courtiers' families that he had met before. Although there were some good ones, in general, as Xie Jin said, they were all people who lived with masks, but then again, speaking of which, the rich and powerful young masters of the imperial capital have grown up in this environment. They have been in contact with people who have interests. Whether it is their parents or the younger generation, they all have competing interests. If their temperament is too simple, they may die without knowing. This is the first time I've seen someone like Yao Yao. Xie Jin raised a smile on his lips, with some sincere joy, like a beam of light. It makes people feel warm and bright. At first, I just felt it's fun, and I even thought that if Yao Yao stayed in the den of tigers and wolves in the imperial capital for a long time, he would be eaten by others sooner or later, and his body would be gone. No matter how cunning the imperial capital tiger wolf is, they can't plot against me. Xian Yuanyao couldn't help but retort, don't say that the Lord is here, even if there isn't, I am not someone who can be plotted by others. Yes, Xie Jin nodded, agreeing with what he said. Yao Yao is a seemingly simple but actually very smart person. How can he be allowed to be plotted by others? Xian Yuanyao was a little stunned when he said this. Compared to you, I'm not that smart. Anyway, I like the feeling of being with you. What started as a joke turned into a habit. Gradually I found that this way of getting along with you is particularly relaxing. I don't have to wear a false mask like I used to with other people. The unpredictable smile makes people feel happier than ever before. Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment and frowned slightly. What you said can actually be done between friends. We usually spend time together enjoying tea, drinking, and joking, and occasionally we can compete in chess or martial arts. Isn't this the way friends get along? Xie Jin shook his head. Friends can share the same goals, and they can be gentlemen, but for Yao Yao, I hope to be together every moment, and I hope to see you every day, even if we meet friends every 3 to 5 months. I don't miss you even once, but I can't help but feel lovesick after not seeing Yao Yao for 3 to 5 days. Xian Yuanyao's handsome face turned slightly red, and he said angrily, don't be so sensational. Xie Jin said, I am telling the truth. Really should. Xian Yuanyao slandered. Yao Yao said that I should be attracted by a peerless beauty who is stunningly beautiful. Xie Jin sighed lightly. Unfortunately, there is really no peerless beauty in this world who can make my heart move. There are many noble ladies in the imperial capital, some are gentle and beautiful, some are elegant and noble, some are talented, some are innocent, and some are even passionate and gorgeous in brothels. I have seen countless beauties, but I have never been attracted to any of them. So, I should feel honored, Xian Yuanyao muttered. As a man, I am lucky to be favored by Master Xieju. Xiejin shook his head slowly. It is my luck to meet Yao Yao. Xian Yuanyao's heart trembled and he felt panic for a while. The panic caused by being unable to resist. He turned his head and glanced out the dark window. I should go back, you. If Yao Yao has something to do, go and do it first. Xiejin's tone was unconsciously gentler, and he was completely different from the unruly Xieju before. You don't have to worry too much about this matter. If you really feel embarrassed, just forget about what happened tonight. I won't force you, and I won't use any method to calculate you. Xian Yuanyao really wanted to leave. Staying here would make him feel uneasy. Although he couldn't tell what this uneasiness came from. But Xiejin's physical condition was not very good at the moment, and Chu Nanyi hadn't come yet, so he was really worried. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 528. I wanted to ask Madame Xie to come, but considering that Madame Xie hadn't closed her eyes for 2 days, I couldn't bear to ask her to come now. Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment, trying his best to suppress the messy thoughts in his mind, and said lightly, you have experienced the wonderful taste of soft jade and warm fragrance, and you may feel a little boring, so you want to change your taste. I remember that Her Majesty the Queen gave you a few beautiful boys before. They are more beautiful than me, and their figures are slender and soft, which may be more suitable for dash. I don't have the habit of keeping male favorites. Xiejin's face changed slightly, and his voice suddenly became cold. Yao Yao compares himself with them, which is too low of yourself. Xian Yuanyao was speechless. If I was attracted by your appearance, I wouldn't have said these words to you tonight. Xiejin looked at him without blinking, his eyes heavy. Do you think I'm risking my master's taboo to confess my feelings just to have a gay love affair that is not tolerated by the world? Xian Yuanyao was speechless by him, and after a while, he frowned and said, Master's taboo. The master warned me before. Xiejin lowered his eyes, let me stay away from you. Xian Yuanyao was surprised. How could he not know? The master thinks that I have bad intentions and am a cunning fox. He is afraid that you will be calculated by me. Xiejin smiled faintly. See, even the master thinks that I am full of scheming. He is afraid that his beloved general will suffer a loss, so he warned me in advance to prevent it from happening. Xian Yuanyao hesitated. You misunderstood, the master trusts you very much, and all the important affairs of the government are handed over to you. How could it be possible? Trust and protection are two different things. Xiejin said indifferently. You are his sweetheart. Xian Yuanyao felt a chill. Sweetheart. This sentence really makes people's scalp numb. Just speak properly. He couldn't help but frown. What nonsense are you talking about? The master's sweetheart is the queen. Do you think everyone is like you? Before he finished speaking, he stopped talking in time, and the words he didn't say were stuck in his throat. What is he talking about? It's all because of Xiejin, this fox, talking nonsense, almost dragging him into the ditch. I'm not jealous, I'm just a little jealous. Xiejin said, I'm jealous of you staying with the master for those years. If I could meet you earlier, you would be my sweetheart, and I could protect you better than the master. Shut up. Xian Yuanyao listened to him talking more and more outrageous and more disgusting, and couldn't help blushing and shouting coldly. The key is that he can no longer tell who this person is jealous of. Are you done? Xiejin shut up, his expression was very well behaved. Xian Yuanyao took a deep breath. Don't mention it again. Xiejin nodded. Well, let's not talk about it. I've grown up so big, and I haven't even held a girl's hand. Xian Yuanyao said with dissatisfaction. You have been through a sea of flowers without getting a single leaf on you, but I haven't even seen the shadow of a flower. This is unfair. Unfair. Xiejin's heart moved slightly, and he said calmly, then what do you think is fair? Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment. At least I should have been through a sea of flowers once. Then he will determine what kind of girl he likes. If he can meet the one he likes, he can openly reject Xiejin's feelings. If he doesn't meet. Xian Yuanyao frowned. If he doesn't meet, we'll talk about it? You mean, let me take you to the brothel to see it, Xiejin said in a bad tone. The brothel is a place of all kinds of people, not suitable for a gentleman like you who loves himself. Xian Yuanyao really doesn't like brothels. The decadent music is really unbearable to the ears. However, he thought about it and felt that girls from ordinary families were strictly educated and could not get close to them easily, otherwise they would have to be responsible for them. How could they easily hold hands with others and have a tryst? What if they found that they did not like the other person after getting close to each other? Xian Yuanyao was in a dilemma. Seeing that the night was getting darker, he really couldn't think about such a complicated problem with Xiejin, so he said lightly, you are weak, don't think about it anymore, and go to bed early. Weak. Xiejin didn't expect that he was already so sick in Xian Yuanyao's heart. He was silent for a while before saying, where is Yao Yao? Are you leaving? I. Xian Yuanyao hesitated for a moment. I will stay here to take care of you and leave at dawn. Xiejin hummed, then I will sleep for a while. Then he lay down on the bed. Because of his weak body and slow movements, Xian Yuanyao couldn't help but reach out to helped him lie down flat, and tucked the quilt for him considerately, as if he was taking care of a dying person. Xiejin stopped making trouble and soon fell asleep. Xian Yuanyao stood in front of the bed, silently watching Xiejin close his eyes. The green shadows under his eyes and the pale face should be the result of the toxins in his body that have not been cleared. Who is the assassin? I wonder if Prime Minister Xie has found the murderer. Xian Yuanyao looked for a while, sat down on the chair, leaned slightly to the side, supported his chin with one hand, and thought about what Xiejin had said just now without saying a word. Like. In this secular world, it is probably difficult to find a second person who likes a man and dares to say it out loud, except for the ninth master of the Xie family. To be fair, Xian Yuanyao actually admires his courage. If the person he likes is not himself, he will really admire Xiejin's courage to challenge the secular world. But why did he have to like me? It was really frustrating. Xian Yuanyao sighed lightly, with a headache. He was idle, so he could not help but think about several possibilities in his mind. Regardless of whether he liked it or not, if he really agreed to be with Xiejin, what would he face in the future? The inheritance of offspring would definitely be gone. Would his father expel him from the family in anger and sever the father-son relationship with him? Xiejin, the son of the prime minister, might become a joke of the entire imperial capital's powerful and noble family. And he would not be able to pass the test of the master. Xian Yuanyao's brows were knotted. He felt that Xiejin was really bold. The master had warned him, but he dared to go his own way. He really didn't cry until he saw the coffin. If he really ignored it, didn't respond, and just pretended that what happened tonight had never happened, would Xiejin really live alone in the future as Jean Ruo said? Xian Yuanyao imagined that after many years, Xiejin, who had entered middle age, would go to court alone, eat alone, drink alone, and lie on a chair alone in his spare time to bask in the sun and enjoy the scenery. Whether it was joy or sorrow, there was no one to share it. Suddenly, he felt that it was a bit unbearable. If there was no one to accompany him in a long and lonely life, would it be tormenting? Author's words. Happy New Year, dears, good health, all the best, and good luck in the year of the ox. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 529. That night, Xian Yuanyao's mind was full of thoughts, and he felt like an ant sitting on a hot pot could not sit still. However, due to Xiejin's health, he still stayed in Jinyuan all night until the sky was dark and there was a sound of footsteps outside. The Xie family guards came in to report that Mr. Chu was here, and Xian Yuanyao slowly turned his head and looked outside. Chu Nanyi walked in carrying the medicine box. When he met Xian Yuanyao's eyes, his expression was obviously surprised. "Prince Yao." Mr. Chu. Xian Yuanyao nodded and stood up from the chair beside the bed. "You came quite early. I sent someone to invite him at midnight last night, and no one came until dawn. Is it because the boy from the Xie family was lazy and didn't go, or was it because Chu Nanyi couldn't put on a show?" "It's getting late." Chu Nanyi didn't know whether she understood the meaning of his words, and smiled gracefully. Xie Shaofu should have entered the palace to discuss matters by now. "When did Prince Yao come over?" Xian Yuanyao said calmly, "Last night." Chu Nanyi was surprised. "You stayed here all night?" Xian Yuanyao nodded. "Prince Yao is really affectionate and kind to Mr. Xie." Chu Nanyi walked to the bedside, looked at Xiejin who was still sleeping, and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Master Xiejun slept soundly?" Xian Yuanyao asked. "The poison in his body has not been completely eliminated. The name of this poison is Tangxi, and its toxicity is somewhat complicated." Chu Nanyi frowned. "Fortunately, the treatment was early, otherwise Xieju would have lost all his martial arts and had to take the medicine for the rest of his life, even if he didn't die." "So serious?" Xian Yuanyao was slightly shocked. "Who poisoned me?" "The assassin was not caught," Chu Nanyi said, turning to look at him. "Mrs. Xie didn't tell you last night?" Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment. "I told you, but I saw that Mrs. Xie was not in good spirits and asked her to go back to rest early, so I didn't ask very detailed questions." "Tangxi is highly poisonous. It is not fatal immediately, but it can make people disabled." Xian Yuanyao's expression suddenly changed. "Maimed. It's like a vine, adhering to the meridians of the human body, corroding the mental energy and making people weak day by day. The martial arts practitioners' martial arts slowly fade away, the meridians shrink, and eventually they are unable to walk or even take care of themselves." Chu Nanyi's tone was cold. "The person behind this is really vicious." Xian Yuanyao's face darkened. Last night he suspected that this was a trick directed and performed by Xiejin. Now after hearing Chu Nanyi's words, he suddenly felt that he was really stupid. How could he doubt him so much? Even if he really wants to use the bitter trick, he can't be so cruel to himself. If Chu Nanyi doesn't arrive in time, I'm afraid the consequences will be disastrous. Xian Yuanyao thought about this, his brows darkened slightly. "Using the poison of Tangxi as a clue, can we find out the identity of the person who led the assassination?" "I've already sent people to check," Chu Nanyi said, raising his hand to touch Xiejin's wrist pulse, "but the person who dares to attack Xiejin at the door of Xie's house, and can succeed with one blow, is by no means an ordinary person." "Identity?" Xian Yuanyao said nothing, and turned his eyes slightly to look at Xiejin, who had fallen into a deep sleep. The poison made him look very weak, and his senses had lost their sensitivity. At this moment, Chu Nanyi and he were standing here talking, and he was still sleeping so deeply, as if he hadn't heard them at all. It can be seen that what Chu Nanyi said is indeed true. "I think the Su family has suspicions and motives for taking action." Chu Nanyi took out a crystal clear blue crystal porcelain bottle from the medicine box, poured a pill from the porcelain bottle and stuffed it into Xiejin's mouth, closing it slightly. The pill slid down his chin, but the person hired to commit the murder must not be from the imperial capital. The author has something to say. "On the first day of the Lunar New Year, I wish my babies a happy new year and good luck in the year of the ox. After eating dumplings this morning, I went hiking with my relatives. Now I am tired and sleepy. I will take a day off today and update tomorrow. Good night. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 530. Su family. Xian Yuanyao's eyebrows deepened slightly. He thought of the previous wedding banquet when Xian Yuanqi got married, when Xiejin announced his rebellion with the Su family in order to vent his anger. The momentary quarrel may not be anything, but others know the temperament of the legitimate son of the Xie family. Many people dare not take his words seriously, so since then, the Su family has indeed fallen silent, as if they haven't seen Suhan for a long time. Jade came out and jumped. However, Xian Yuanyao stayed in the military camp all day and rarely stayed with the noble prince of the imperial capital. During this period, he hardly paid attention to the affairs of the aristocratic family, so he didn't know what the situation of the Su family was. At this time, after Chu Nanyi reminded him, he suddenly realized that if Xiejin's assassination was really related to the Su family, then it seemed that it was also caused by him. Thinking of this, Xian Yuanyao's mood became more complicated. He glanced at a certain monster sleeping soundly on the bed and thought to himself that he owed him another favor. And it seems that this favor is not easy to repay. To be honest, if he were a girl and met a man like Xiejin who had such excellent conditions in all aspects and was as beautiful as a flower but could still be devoted to him and was even willing to send away his concubines in the backyard for him, he would definitely have no hesitation. Just choose to commit yourself. But the problem is, he is a man. Xian Yuanyao was a little troubled. Prince Yao looks troubled. Chu Nanyi turned around and saw Xian Yuanyao's expression was tangled, as if there was something he couldn't figure out, so he asked in confusion, "Is something the matter?" Xian Yuanyao glanced at him and shook his head slowly, "It's nothing." Chu Nanyi snorted. Seeing that he was unwilling to say anything, he didn't ask any more questions. He just said lightly, "Although Mr. Xieju's poison can be cured in time, the poison is very tricky. He has to take medicine every day. Things in the court I can't worry about it for the time being. If Crown Prince Yao has time, can he come over often to take care of me?" "Come to take care of me often?" Xian Yuanyao subconsciously said, "The Xie family has many maids and servants, do you still need me?" "It's not that Crown Prince Yao is absolutely needed, it's just that Crown Prince Yao has a good relationship with Master Ju, and being able to talk to him often can relieve the worries in his heart." Chu Nanyi smiled faintly, "The days of recuperation are boring after all, and besides, thanks to Master Ju I used to be very energetic, but now I am bedridden. I am afraid that it will be difficult to get used to this weak state for a while. No matter how meticulous the servants and maids are, they are not as comforting as the company of friends." Xian Yuanyao thought about it and had to admit that what Chu Nanyi said made sense. Just thinking about facing Xiejin's unbroken affection in the future, Xian Yuanyao felt uncomfortable and didn't know how to deal with it. "I'm going back to the military camp first," he said, his voice calm but with hidden ferocity. "Some things have not been arranged yet. In addition, the assassin must be investigated as soon as possible. When the murderer is found, I will cut him into pieces." Chu Nanyi nodded, "Prince Yao, go get busy first. I will give Juya acupuncture and detoxification later. It will take 2 hours to finish. You have nothing to do while you are here, so why not go back and rest first?" Xian Yuanyao nodded in agreement and left Jinyuan temporarily. When he walked out of the gate of Xie's house, he happened to meet Xie Xiaofu, who had just returned from the palace. Xian Yuanyao stopped and took the initiative to greet him, "My nephew has met Uncle Xie." Xie Xiaofu also looked a little tired. When he saw Xian Yuanyao, He had a smile on his face. I heard from Madam that Prince Yao took care of Jinner all night last night. Thank you for your hard work. It's not hard. Xian Yuan Yao's attitude was humble. My nephew and Ajin are friends, so we should take care of him. Friend. Xia Xiaofu thought that his son's thoughts towards others were not as simple as friends. But he didn't want to scare Xian Yuan Yao, so he smiled lightly. Is Jinner awake? I woke up once during the night and then fell asleep again. Xian Yuan Yao replied. Chu Nanyi came here in the morning and will give Ajin acupuncture later. I can't help much if I stay here. I plan to go back to the military camp first. Trip. Xia Xiaofu hummed, are you coming tonight? Xian Yuan Yao was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly, come. Xia Xiaofu seemed to be relieved, and an imperceptible smile appeared on the corner of his lips. In that case, I won't waste your time, go and get busy. My nephew, please leave. Xian Yuan Yao bowed and quickly turned around and left. Xia Xiaofu stood outside the door, watching the young man turn around and mount his horse. His slender figure and neat and heroic demeanor were indeed eye-catching. Thinking of his son's romantic and passionate temperament, in the end he did not fall into the hands of a warm and fragrant nephrite beauty, but was captured by a heroic young man. This taste is really unique and eye-popping. Xia Xiaofu shook his head and entered the house. The Xia family's mansion was extremely quiet and the atmosphere was tense. Several concubines and concubines stayed in their own courtyards and did not dare to come out. Although they usually kept their thoughts to themselves, when something happened to Xia Jin, they were afraid that they would be suspected and angered. Each one of them tightened their heartstrings and wished they could jump in front of their father to prove their innocence. However, Xia Xiaofu, who had always loved Yao, and the head of the Xia family, who was furious even if his son hurt a hair, had no intention of getting angry this time. Not only was the family at home calm, but the palace affairs were also handled in an orderly manner. It's a bit puzzling. Entering the master bedroom of Jin Yuan, Mr. Xia saw Chu Nanyi giving Xia Jin acupuncture. The ninth master of the Xia family, who always had his own way of doing things, was leaning on the bedside. His face still looked a little pale, but he was in much better spirits and his eyebrows were shining. The clothes on his body were half taken off, revealing half of his lean shoulder and left arm. Silver needles were inserted into the acupuncture points on his arms, and small silver needles were inserted into the 5 fingers of his left hand. There was a large bowl on the ground in front of the bed, and blue-black blood dripped down the silver needles on his 5 fingers. In a bowl. They say 10 fingers connect to the heart. At this time, Xia Jin seemed to feel no pain at all, and said in a calm tone, how long will it take for this poison to be eliminated? Zhu can finish it whenever he wants. Xia Jin's voice was lazier. In that case, let's finish it in 2 months. Okay, I have no problem, Chu Nanyi said calmly. Anyway, it's not me who hurts, and I'm not the one who suffers. When the Lord comes back, I'm not the one who will be held accountable for dereliction of duty. Xia Jin closed his eyes in low spirits. Don't open any pot and lift it. He is also troubled. But right now, other things don't matter. Winning the little leopard's heart is the most important thing. Does the bitter meat plan work? Xia Xiaofu walked into the inner room and looked at his son lying on the bedside. Don't lose your wife and then lose your troops. Chu Nanyi heard him speak and stood up to greet him. Master Chief Assistant. I finally got an opportunity to use the bitter trick. How could I miss it? Xia Jin sighed. Has the assassin found out?